everyone.
From them so I can hold them to it.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started with the First Five Sacramento Commission meeting. Today is March 5th, and we have an interesting situation. But what we'll do is kick off the meeting, have our clerk read roll call, and then we'll go from there.
Dave Gordon.
Here.
Beth Hassett. Terrence Jones.
Here.
Olivia Kassiri.
Here.
Terry Porter.
Here.
Scott Moak.
Here.
Phil Cerna. We have a quorum. Today, Steve Orts will be voting for Beth Hassett, and Terry Porter will be voting for the vacant position left by Paul Lake. This meeting of the First Five Sacramento Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed caption and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Wednesday, March 7th at 2 p.m. and Friday, March 9th at noon on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the Commission may sign a speaker slip at the kiosk located in the back of the room. Please include the agenda item number that you wish to address and then bring the completed form to me. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the Commission and state your name for the record. If you have any electronic devices, please put them on silent or turn off now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. As you can tell from our roll call, we are missing our chair and vice chair. And so I've checked in with County Council, and he's going to sort of walk us through the process for electing a chair for the day.
So our bylaws do contemplate such a situation, and the answer to how we handle this is the remaining commissioners that are present can select a temporary chairperson. We've done some research, and the most senior member of the commission is Commissioner Moak.
Hey! I won!
Not yet, not yet.
Finally!
So it's my suggestion, our suggestion, staff's suggestion, that if there's a motion and a second, and then you vote on that, he will be the temporary chairperson for the day and can fill that seat, which is necessary because that's the command screen, if you like.
You guys should totally not make a motion on this. Just let it die.
I move that we appoint
Is there a second?
Moak as interim chair.
Second.
And roll call vote, all in agreement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Congratulations.
Should I abstain? I don't even know what I...
Too late. You're recorded as an emphatic yes.
Okay, all right. So do I move now?
Yes, please.
Hey, all right.
All right.
I feel like there should have been music or
I
fanfare
know,
or something.
sorry.
This is going to be the worst meeting ever, so just prepare yourselves for that, all of you. Okay, let's start in then. Welcome everybody to. Do I have like a preamble to read, or you get to do that, or Phil does it off the top of his head? The Pledge of Allegiance. Let's let Dr. Wirtz lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We get to dive right in with item number 1.
Approve the February 5th, 2018 draft action summary.
Okay. Obviously had time to look at this. This requires votes, so we will entertain a motion to...
I move to approve.
Second.
Dr. Jones and Dr. Wirtz, the doctors, first and second. And now we go roll call vote. Is that how that works?
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Steve Wirtz.
Aye.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri.
Aye.
Terry Porter.
Aye.
Scott Moak.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right. We'll move on to item number 2.
Public comments on non-agenda items.
And I do have some speaker slips, and if you do have others that request to speak, comment to the commission, you can grab a speaker slip at the back of the room. We do have at least one, and maybe more that are coming. So I could ask Frederick Gale Jr. to come to the podium. Hello, sir.
Frederick A. Gale, Jr. My question was, what is the purpose of the first five? I've read a lot of your material for the years, and I sometimes compare it to the Flying Dutchman. And why can't we seem to solve the problem we seem to address every day? And I also suggest that maybe we would get a contract with the Israelis, and they would probably solve this for us quite often. You know, I was born in '31, September 22nd. We had the WPA and other alphabet organizations. Some of them are still here, and some of them are gone. But I would suggest maybe you look at the health system in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, UK, and maybe we would be a model for us, and we would come to that landing once in a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederick.
Of course.
Nobody else is signed up to speak on this particular item. So with that, we can move on to item number 3.
Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. Some exciting things to report out for this month. Last month, the President did sign the budget, which increases spending in several priority areas for children, which you can see. It includes our home visiting McVie program, which Sacramento County Department of Public Health does receive funding to run the Nurse Family Partnership home visiting program through that, so that's wonderful. And it reauthorized the Children's Health Insurance Plan known as CHIP, for the next 10 years, but at a reduced amount. The budget provides $7 billion for federally funded clinics, which are a major partner with the Commission, not only for oral health, but also in our work with reducing African American child death. And also funded increases in child care block grants, which improve access and quality to child care. So very good stuff. Unfortunately, the whole question around DACA program was not answered in the budget, so that is still something that we're looking at. And there are some potential major changes to the CalFresh program, which is the food stamp program, that could really impact families too. So we'll just continue watching and advocating and reporting back to you. And speaking of advocating, November will mark the 20th anniversary of the passage of Proposition 10. And First Five from across the state will be at the Capitol for an advocacy day to meet with our legislators. And this year they're doing something slightly different. We're having a big day on the Capitol lawn with children and families and service providers out there. So if you have an opportunity to join us on May 2nd from 11 to 1 at the state capitol, please do so. And there's a flyer in your packet giving a little more information about that. I'm going to move on to community water fluoridation. After reviewing the fluoridation map at our last commission meeting, staff reached out to 2 water districts in South Sacramento that were smaller areas but were completely surrounded by fluoridated water but did not have fluoridated water themselves. And we just sort of touched base with both of them to see if there was any interest in fluoridating. The Florin County Water District was a resounding no, but the Fruit Ridge Vista Water District, which had previously been not interested in fluoridation, is actually being bought by Cal-Am water company. And Cal-Am is interested in fluoridating. They fluoridated with us here in Sacramento and in Los Angeles. And so it's about a 12 to 18 month purchasing process, but we will probably follow up with them after it's purchased to see if there is an interest. So perhaps not the end of our fluoridating days, but we'll get back to you on that. And another exciting thing we're working on, in in an attempt to build agency capacity and sustainability among our funded partners. So you know how we've been working internally on our own sustainability plan, and now we're sort of focusing externally on our contracted partners to see how we can provide them with some assistance in building sustainability and capacity. So we've contracted with a consultant who will be providing technical assistance in a large group format and then also in cohorts based on the priority area that each of the agencies works in, and then even some one-on-one technical assistance if needed. The goal is for the agencies to become more innovative, to broaden their volunteer base with some highly trained volunteers, and to develop an agency-specific sustainability plan, which is something that is in our contract language moving forward in the new strategic plan, that each must have its own sustainability plan. And so we won't ask them to do that in a vacuum. We will be providing them technical assistance to do that. Moving on, after the last commission meeting, there was a lot of excitement around the Crocker Art Museum and the various programs that they have for children 0 to 5. And so we've scheduled a private tour with commissioners and advisory committee members. It'll be on Monday, April 16th at 3 p.m. I have about 5 commissioners signed up right now, but there's definitely space. And so if you're interested, just let me know, and I can RSVP for all of us as a group. Something not in my written packet, but just happened last Friday that I want to share with you is that on Friday we partnered with First 5 California and the Kings on a special Dr. Seuss celebration at Robla Preschool in Rio Linda. And about 270 children, 270 preschoolers in one auditorium, plus their parents and their teachers, and the First 5 team from Sacramento, from First 5 California, and a bunch of Kings people were there. Doug Christie read one fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish to these kids. He was amazing. And then the president of the Kings was dancing, singing, running around. It was just so much fun. It was really special to have like that caliber of an event at our local preschool, and I just really valued the partnership with the Kings and with First 5 California to make that happen. So we do have some video clips and different things we'll bring to you at the next commission meeting. They just weren't up and running quite yet, but I think some of it might already be up on Facebook if you want to check that out. And finally, also not included in your written work, but last December, SCOE did finalize a publication called the Sacramento County Early Learning Roadmap, which you each have a copy of. And that document is actually the result of 15 months of various stakeholders getting together. I think more than 60 stakeholders, including First 5 and several of our funded partners, working to deliver this document. The plan, the goal of the plan is to create a community where all children have access to quality early learning services. I didn't know if Commissioner Gordon, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I just want to express appreciation to Dr. Natalie Woods-Andrews. Would you stand for a moment? And our staff at SCOE for all of the hard work that went into this document. I think it's a great document and will serve us well in the next several years.
Thank you. And that concludes my Executive Director's report.
Any questions or comments for our Executive Director? Commissioner Wirtz?
Yes, just a couple things. Back to our first speaker, Frederick's concern about why we don't solve this, I wanted to follow up on the federal piece of this that you were reporting on and ask you about, just to acknowledge, I guess, the status of the Affordable Care Act in terms of its impact on us being able to support families. You mentioned the DACA piece and the food stamps, and I think the other piece that interferes with our ability to maintain our families and support them in part is how to maintain that the Accountable Care Act, and California has been doing a lot of backfilling to do that. But so that's one question. The second, I think, because you mentioned the DACA piece, I just want to sort of highlight highlight the reality that the whole Sacramento region, as well as other parts of the Bay Area and northern area, are being terrorized in large degree by these ICE raids that are happening. They themselves admit that only around half of them are people that have some kind of a criminal status, and they lump a lot of things together in that, which are somewhat minor. But nonetheless, because we deal with families in 0 to 5, I had provided to, and perhaps it can be sent to the commission, I had provided a just released peer-reviewed article on the impacts of immigration actions in news and the psychological distress on U.S. Latino parents raising children. And I think we just continue to, we've talked about this before, but we need to continue to recognize that some of our communities, in particular our Latino communities and even other communities of color, are being faced with uncertainty and undermining the trust that they have in the institutions we have to provide support to them. And I think it's just important for us to continue to recognize that. And I will just say it again, that upcoming at some point fairly soon is going to be whether or not we reconvene, whether we reauthorize the contract that our sheriff department has with ICE. And I know some of the Board of Supervisors, my understanding is Patrick Kennedy has taken a position of not wanting to re-accept that contract, and I think we should, as an organization focused on parents and 0 to 5, that I think it's really important that we take that into account as well. So.
Thanks, Dr. Wirtz. Any other comments or questions for our executive director? Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 4.
Advisory Committee update.
Here he comes.
Here I come. My name is Robert Silva. I am the chair of the first five of the Sacramento County Advisory Meeting. And I'd like to also say congratulations to Commissioner Moak for your win today. Hey, good
thanks.
job. All right. You know, you're very excited about that, I could see. So, okay.
That didn't mean anything. That was just a...
With our meeting on the 9th, of course, we had our mindfulness moment, right, Miss Carolyn Curtis, that we have each month. This has become a practice now each month in our meetings, and it's been very refreshing, because I think we get to know each other a little bit with that. We had our first 5 commissioners' directors report by Miss Carmen Garcia Gomez, in place of Miss Julie, of course. So she did a very good job. She gave us an update, but really what we were very impressed with was the RAD update, which is, of course, reducing African American children's deaths. Some of the statistics that were discussed was, for example, the African American infant deaths occurred amongst the no African American infant deaths occurs amongst the 241 babies delivered by program participants. We thought that was very good, very positive. And of course, that there was African American infant sleep-related deaths rates have significantly declined, 20% since 2013. We were very impressed with that. So that was very good. There was 2 questions that were brought up, though. The question was, is there going to be a longitudinal study for tracking children to report successes? So how long are these studies going to be done over time? And then we wanted to know, is there going to be a report or outcome findings for all RAD programs that were first 5 funded and non-funded? So I imagine there was going to be some discussion on that for a period of time. We also had a very, very good presentation by the refugee resettlement overview by the Sacramento Food Bank, which is done by Genevieve Levy, the Director of Family Services for the Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services. And if you don't know much about that program, right now we are getting a large influx of Syrian refugees right now that we're resettling at this time, and through the food bank, I know because we work with them on with Head Start too. There's about, I think so far, and this is off the top of my head, about 5,000 or more that have come in so far, and it's a very, very different culture they're coming into, and they're providing a lot of different services to them, from counseling to housing, to having people come in that were doctors and lawyers within their country, and now are coming here and finding that their education maybe is not equivalent, and they have to resettle in. So we were very interested in that, and we were very impressed with, so far, what is happening. So, other than that, is there any questions?
Any questions for our chair?
Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate the report. Next up is item 5.
Evaluation Committee update?
Dr. Wertz?
Yes, just briefly, I wanted just to respond to the question about the longitudinal studies. I think in general, the Evaluation Committee is working much more to focus on the notion that we don't start each evaluation with each new year, so to speak. So we are beginning to build that in as a standard practice for looking at how to collect and analyze that data. However, I will say that the notion of looking at the overall project is a difficult task, and I know at this time certainly there is not enough resources within the evaluation budget that would allow for capturing the multitude of different community activities and their relationship to these processes. But I also think that the RAD group is also looking at this and does have an evaluation plan that addresses some parts of this. So I think we need to keep asking that and look for what happens over time. Just then on the status of the evaluation committee, we our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 19th at 1 p.m. We had delayed that meeting somewhat until we could continue to work as a group across the evaluation of the birth and beyond interventions, and I will just say that under the leadership of the First Five staff and in partnership with the county, we have worked very hard to set up a working group to look at how to carry out that evaluation in an effective way. And I think with our consultants and all our partners, we're going to feel much more comfortable about the legitimacy of the results and the appropriateness of the evaluation process. So I think we'll be seeing that in the next go-round, I think, probably next month.
Nice, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Wertz? Okay. Next is item 6.
Financial Planning Committee update?
So Kathy's not here. Is there somebody that fills in?
We didn't actually have a meeting last month,
meeting.
so Eric, when are we meeting again?
Next day, April.
In April.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Item number 7.
Sustainability Committee update?
Donna Sneeringer.
So the Sustainability Committee met on February 20th, which seems like a lifetime ago for some reason. And Julie actually reported out on a couple of the big issues that we tackled. We did go over the governor's proposed budget and the federal changes in the federal budget that's being processed. And we talked a little bit about some of the legislation that that's being proposed that may impact some of the services we provide as well. Because of the timing of the meeting, it was a little early to make any recommendations, so we'll continue to keep you updated. We also did meet with the consultant that's working on the local sustainability plans that are being put together with our contractors, and had a robust discussion about the value of that and his strategy, and I think it's going to be a really exciting process. We're looking forward to continuing to work with him, and I think we're all going to be very pleased with the outcomes in that front. And lastly, Julie spent quite a bit of time working with us through the network strategy that's being developed by First Five California and the First Five Association to provide better coordination of data, message, and outcome in statewide advocacy efforts and communication. And they have actually been invited to come present to us in June, so you'll hear a lot more about it at that point. And there is a statewide conference of First Five that's being held in Glendale in April, and Commissioner Hassett and I will both be there for the commissioners meeting, and I'm sure we'll learn more about that then as well.
Great, thank you for that. Any questions or comments for, yeah?
Thank you. Just one question. I was going to ask it to Julie as well, but in the sustainability meeting that you had, I wasn't sure, I didn't get the understanding between internal, I know we've been working on internal agencies, and you sort of mentioned external agencies. So I was just wondering what examples of external agencies are we talking about?
So the organizations that we contract with as a part of their new agreements have to develop their own sustainability plan. Okay. So this commission has already adopted our plan for how we want to look at our funding and our future opportunities, but we're going to work with each of our contracted agencies to have them come up with their own strategies. And it's working through this consultant that will be able to assist them. And though we've done a lot of talking about sustainability over the years, it's very different to actually start to dig into what could be ongoing sources of funding. How do you tap into that? And how do you have that be part of your culture and your organization going forward? So that's really what we'd be working on there.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Elliott?
And to add, we were really excited to provide our contracting agencies some consistency so that when we talk about that, here at the commission level, the consistency amongst our contractors would be something that we would be able to point to. And then I recall when I presented the sustainability plan, I believe that the direction from the commission was that we provide that stability and provide that assistance as well, so that we have that consistency across the board.
Thanks. Okay, with no one else requesting to speak, we can move on to our next item, which is item number 8.
Approval of funding recommendations for Community Connections grants, low-income housing complexes.
Alejandra Labrado will be taking this one on.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. A few months ago, we updated you that we would like to expand the CCG program to housing communities. This expansion would allow for housing organizations or social services agencies that are working within the housing organization to work in collaboration with residents to apply for a CCG grant. So today I'd like to present you with 2 housing communities that we would like to pilot for this expansion. As part of the application process, the housing organization collected feedback from the residents, not only on what ideas for activities that they would like in their housing community, but also to encourage their participation and involvement in their community. The proposed activities will be joint led between resident group leaders, agency staff, and community partners. Before I introduce you to the 2 groups we would like to pilot, do you have any questions about this expansion?
Any comments or questions?
Great.
Sheer joy you want to share? That would be mine.
This is easy. Okay, great. So the first group is at the Providence Apartments at Mack Road in South Sacramento. If those group leaders can please stand.
Yay.
Great. These residents, 0 to 5 parents, will be working in collaboration with a nonprofit agency focused on family. In this community, there's about 100 families with children ages 0 to 5 years old. The resident leaders are proposing to hold weekly parent empowerment workshops, such as family literacy, socialization, health and wellness, and also bi-weekly parent and child bonding activities through music, arts, and crafts.
Tremendous.
Yeah. The next group is located at the Twin Rivers Apartments in North Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
These resident parents will work in collaboration with Urban Strategies, a nonprofit agency currently working in this community to support and case manage families that will be relocated in the fall. There's about 50 families with children ages 0 to 5 in this community. And these parents express the importance and desire of having family activities to maintain relationships with one another despite their relocation in the fall. They're proposing to meet weekly for parent-led activities such as cultural celebrations, family soccer days. We've got a licensed baker mom who wants to teach the parents and kids how to bake. We also have another mom who's a Birth and Beyond mom who's felt empowered enough to be a group leader here for this group as well. They've also reached out to the other community partners to provide space and to continue the partnership after they relocate so they can remain connected to each other and to the Twin Rivers community. So both of these grants are already included in the current contract with CAPSI for fiscal agent services.
Excellent. And on the baking note, we do accept cookies are fine. If you want to, like cookies or any cake, any baked goods, we will take here at the commission anytime. Okay. It's on the record now, dear. It's on the record. Let's take some, we have some comments from commissioners. Ms. Elliott. You don't have anything. Let's go to Dr. Wirtz then.
Just a quick, perhaps I don't understand the relocation aspect of it. If that's appropriate, could you say something further about that?
So the Twin Rivers community is going to be essentially torn down and rebuilt, a certain part of town, and when it is rebuilt, it's going to come back as sort of mixed use area, a variety of folks living in there. There'll be some social services built into it. Coming back as like a beautiful new community.
I see.
But in the meantime, folks are going to have to relocate for, I think it's up to a couple of years. And so they really were, Alejandra and I talked about, is this appropriate to invest the money and the time in the group when they might be scattering? All the feedback from the families was that they didn't want to just lose all the connections that they had made there, and that they did plan to come back. And so maintaining those relationships, even during the transition period, was important to them, and so it was important to us.
I see, and that makes sense then of the need for space, or that they're using the Family
Correct.
Resource Center, because I was otherwise, for the other project, I'm really excited to see that there would be both the management and residents would work together to have this happen on site.
Right.
I think that's really an exciting model, and we really appreciate your leadership and want to see how we can continue to support this kind of activities, and we want to hear more about what you need and how you move forward. So, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Any other requests to speak? We can entertain a motion if someone would like to do that. Dr. Wirtz, second first, and Dr. Jones our second. So this is a roll call vote.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Steve Wirtz.
Aye.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Olivia Kasiri.
Aye.
Terry Porter.
Aye.
Scott Moe.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Hey, congratulations. High fives, yes.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself on item number 9 as
Okay.
my office has a request.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself for item 9 and 10 as an employee of DHHS.
Okay. Thank you both.
Do we have a quorum?
You have a quorum still, I believe, right?
do.
Yeah, we're still good. Yep.
With the alternatives, we still have a quorum.
Got it. Okay, well, let's take item number 9.
Approval of funding recommendations for programs under the results of early care, school readiness, and effective parenting.
Great, thank you. So last month, the commission awarded $12 million to 11 agencies to provide services for children and families, and that was amazing. But what's before you today is even bigger than that. So it's really impressive. Item number 9 today brings you $31 million worth of funding over the next 3 years to 10 community agencies to provide critical prevention and early intervention services. So if you add this $31 million with the others that we'll be doing today just alone, nearly $36 million that this commission is awarding. So it's a huge day. This batch of contracts includes Sac City Unified School District as our final school readiness contract. It includes Sacramento County Office of Education and Child Action as our partners to increase quality in child care settings. It includes the Sacramento Children's Home, to continue the crisis nurseries in both North and South Sacramento. And finally, it includes CAPSI and the 6 Family Resource Center partners, who together run our Birth and Beyond programs in 9 communities across the county. Staff are requesting approval to enter into contract with each of the 10 agencies for a total of $31 million over the 2018 strategic plan period. And you can see in the attachments to this commission letter a brief outline of each of the services to be provided through each of the partner agencies.
Okay, thank you. So our discussion. Dr. Wirtz, is that your request to speak on this one?
I didn't request, but
But you will.
I just surprise, all right? No, more just to maybe ask if, Julie, if you would do a little bit more background about how the process for getting to these. I think it would just inform us a little. I'm sorry to ask that. But
yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
So we these we're calling our non-competitive applications. So we developed applications and asked our funded partners to explain to us the changes between the current year's contracts and what we would be looking at for the next 3 years. The decrease in funding we know was going to result in a slightly modified scope of work and potentially numbers served. And so each of the applicants provided us with a detailed application, and then in many cases we went back and requested some follow-up information, and addendums were created in the majority of cases to get to where we needed to get with dollar amounts and services. So those all came in over the course of the last several months, and then what you're authorizing us to do today is to go back and just finish those negotiations and get the contracts in place. For the most part, the services that have been provided that were successful and impactful, these are non-competitive. The commission realized that these are critical services to maintain. These are the ones that came out very highly in our strategic plan work group. And so these are the services and programs that would continue into the next strategic plan.
Just to follow up on that, so you mentioned the decrease in funding. Did most of these, per our plan, have about a 10%? Or did
no,
it
most
vary?
of them had more than that.
Got it.
The school districts had about a 20%. The early care contracts with SCOE and Child Action were more at a 30%. Reduction, yes. And then the Birth and Beyond programs were at 15% reduction. So kind of a little all over the place, but anywhere between 10 and 30% for all of the continuing contracts.
And
one thing.
Then the other portion of that is, do you think the range or scope of services, the reach, is sort of proportionally being cut in those amounts generally?
Some of the agencies, yes. If they got a 15% cut, they were, putting forward 15% reduction in the numbers. I think we saw our school districts really dig deep and were able to obtain some additional funding from the districts, maybe through the local funding formula, local control funding formula. So I think we saw, even though the school districts had a 20% reduction, they actually didn't come out with 20% reduction in the number of kids and families to be served. We were really happy about that. Most of the others were right around the mark where they were reduced.
I guess this is also just, and then Donna, you can get your comment. This is, for a long time, through multiple strategic planning sessions and through years and years of thinking about this movement of a non-competitive process. I think we got to a spot where we realized that things are going well with a lot of these programs. We are making investments and giving this money to organizations that are absolutely doing the work that is required of them and changing the landscape of these communities. And so, that debate about why then make them reapply. If it's working, then let it keep working. So I was really happy. I know that it stood for debate for a long time, but I was really happy that we have landed in this spot where we know these organizations that are doing good consistently and meeting marks and exceeding them in many cases are now have something to rely on, because that means those families and kids ultimately have this to rely on. The stop-starts don't do anybody any good. So I'm thrilled for this.
And I just wanted to add a couple comments on the quality childcare section. One, I'm really pleased to see the inclusion of family childcare. I think it's critically important. That is where many of our youngest children are, often our lowest income, and those who have families that work non-traditional schedules. So it's important that we have quality options across the continuum. I continue to look for where we're working with family, friend, and neighbor care and informal care. And I know with our limited funding and cutting back, that's a challenge. But I'm curious, Julie, how in the proposals or in the conversations it was discussed how this will leverage against state-funded programs and other sources of funding that I know go into these efforts.
Right. So in my mind, this is sort of all under this large umbrella that SCOE operates called Raising Quality Together, that you've had a presentation on in the past. And there's just so many pieces of that puzzle, but that is the big umbrella under which our funding contributes. First Five California funding contributes. There's the state preschool spaces, and it is a puzzle, but I think SCOE does a really good job of making sure that things are not duplicated, that we're not First Five money is being leveraged but not supplanting any other funds. So I really look to them sort of as our leadership to say what we can do. As the commission and trying to understand, I actually learned quite a bit about the programs this time around, because this is my first strategic planning period and my first opportunity to be engaged in the negotiations and what the scopes of work look like. So it's a great learning opportunity for me. We actually will be meeting with all of the early care partners later this month. Because we see opportunities around evaluation and showing the impact about both of these programs, which I think in some ways, at least in my understanding, they collaborate, but they kind of still do work in their own silos, and they didn't even really know exactly what the other agency was doing. So I saw that as an opportunity for moving forward, pulling them into a room together, facilitating a discussion about that, and seeing where it makes sense, where can we double down on our evaluation efforts and other places to make sure that we continue, even with less funding, to serve as many parents and as many child care providers as possible between both of the grants.
And I'm glad to hear that that meeting's going to happen. I think that there are parts of the early care system that are more robustly resourced than others. And as we go forward, even as our dollars diminish, I think it would serve us well to figure out where those gaps are and make sure we're doing our best to leverage where there are more robust dollars. And I think that's part of sustainability in this area. I think this is a growing area of state and federal funding, and it's just going to be critically important for us to be smart about these investments. So, but I thank you for pulling that together.
Yep, my pleasure.
Commissioner Jones, you good?
Yes, I am. I thank you. My piece was also about the sustainability aspects. I'm supportive of these programs, and I think this is a great opportunity for them to be funded. But I was looking at also that reduction in services and thinking that if they're given, I think, well-deserved non-competitive bidding, that that sustainability of the services, I would like to see that piece worked out. At least, I don't know how it's done, and I think, Donna, you maybe that's the case, but I think the onus should be also on the groups to, show that they are able to come up with some plan about how that's going to happen, if not this funding cycle, certainly in the next, because we know it's going to happen again.
Agreed. We know we're looking down a 30% cut in 2021 to the overall budget. which brings us down to our baseline, kind of money in, money out after that. And so we've actually written into contract for each of the agencies a 10% match we were per year as a minimum match so that they are already thinking about leveraging. We've even asked them, when possible, to give us a steady budget across all 3 years, whereas typically we allow them to raise a budget every year for COLA and other things, but we're saying, well, maybe that could be part of your contribution toward the sustainability piece of it. And then I really do think bringing on a contractor and helping them walk through that, how do they create a sustainability piece, what kinds of support do they need to do that, is going to be critical too. Yep.
Thank you. Great. Commissioner Wirtz?
Just a general comment. I know that many of these programs already are deeply rooted in the communities, and I think that's really a critical component to their success. But I guess I was just going to sort of highlight that I think the part of the sustainability is going to be actually expanding that the depths of the roots into the community both for political purposes, but also for actually supporting families. So I'm hoping that that's part of the thinking around the sustainability is, how to continue to build champions in the community and engage a broader and broader set of those community members as well.
Thanks. Okay, with no other comments and no one signed up to speak on this item, we can entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Commissioner Sneeringer.
I'll second.
And second.
And just a point of order, just if I could, now that it's been moved and seconded. I was just wondering, I know you got no comments from for speakers, but I'm just wondering about the question of whether anyone from these agencies would like to speak to any of these issues, the sustainability, the integration with the community, or I don't want anyone to feel any pressure, but this is a big 3-year commitment here, and I just wanted to make sure that anyone that felt like they wanted to say something about this would.
We could roll the tape back from 3 years ago when they talked about the same thing, but and choosing which one. But I see there's a couple that are racing to the podium. Sheila Anderson from CAPC, it looks like Richard Dana from Mutual Assistance Network, and Natalie Woods Andrews from SCOE. And a representative from NICE from the Sacramento Children's Home. So there's 13 other people that are going to come in too and speak about this. No, all thanks, Mr. Wirtz. Thank you.
We just raced so we could be first.
Right.
That was it, right? Richard Dana with the Mutual Assistance Network and representing the Birth and Beyond Collaborative today.
Sheila Boxley, Child Abuse Prevention Center, also representing the Birth and Beyond Collaborative. Dave.
You can also represent the Birth and Beyond.
David Baker, Sacramento Children's Home, representing the Birth and Beyond Collaborative as well as the Sacramento Children's Home Crisis Nurseries.
I think that we can talk a little bit about some fairly concrete things and then ask you to trust us. There's some other things in the works that probably shouldn't be on tape and televised just yet. But we do have a sustainability committee for Birth and Beyond, and we are actively looking at that, and it includes everything from looking at possible affiliations that would give us access to McVie money to another funding request that is currently being considered at several levels that would help to offset money. We are also looking at the implications of the passage of the Families First Act and what that means, and we are actively engaged at the Capitol in working with CDSS CalWorks on the funding proposal for home visitation that's come from the governor's office. So yes, we are very actively looking, and I think it's worthy of note that the Birth and Beyond program has been highly leveraged all along with a match level that exceeds what's being asked of all the other agencies at this point. So I would say we've already done those things that were, when I say easiest to do, if you've ever done mall billing, you know it has nothing to do with easy. But we've done, things that already have required some effort and some real commitment for a number of years.
I'm going to add to that on the point of the community component. Birth and Beyond has hired lots of folks from inside the neighborhoods that have grown up inside the program and have gone on to sit on school boards and in other places and be champions for us in places like the First Five Commission, like City of Sacramento, County of Sacramento. So that in itself, you're talking about 19 years worth of work and building up to that. So it's not something that happens overnight, and we're able to actually take strong advantage of that at this point and continue that momentum.
Thank you.
I'll just add, in terms of the crisis nursery, built into the plan is a 10% match, but it's very clear that traditionally the Sacramento Children's Home, we've provided about 3 to 4 times that. We have strong support from our board. Our board has put together a crisis nursery sustainability committee just for that topic and has a very active plan about funding, because we know that it's a vital resource that we can't just lower it or reduce it or get rid of it. It has too much of an impact on the community. So we greatly appreciate the approval going forward for the amount of money that we get from First Five, but we do work hard at bringing in a tremendous amount of additional dollars to increase the number of kids we can see each year. Appreciate your support on that.
Thanks, David.
Good afternoon, Natalie Woods Andrews with the Sacramento County Office of Education. Thank you so much for considering the funding for these programs. On behalf of the Sacramento County Office of Education, I've had an opportunity to share with you that we have been able to utilize First Five funds as a foundational piece to really build the infrastructure of support to enhance the quality of early care and education programs for Sacramento County. At the same time, in terms of sustainability, we have been able to draw down a number of grants and contracts that really help us leverage and really enhance the services that we're able to provide. And so the First Five funding is part of a continuum of services and supports that we're able to offer to child care providers and also family child care homes. So part of our sustainability is seeking out additional funding, but leveraging the First Five fundings in order to do that. Another part of our strategy is partnering with our community agencies throughout Sacramento County. And as Julie shared with you and Superintendent Gordon shared, that we have recently released the Sacramento County Early Learning Roadmap. And that, again, is an opportunity to bring our community into the conversation about what it means to have quality early care and education, prenatal through age 8. And so building that awareness and then also partnering so that we're not duplicating services and we're really maximizing our resources is another strategy that not one entity can do this alone, but how do we as Sacramento County come together to really sustain these efforts? And then finally, I just wanted to respond to your comment, Commissioner Sneeringer, in regards to family friends, neighbors. And Julie has shared with you the work that we're doing with Raising Quality Together. However, part of the funding that we're receiving is through First Five California, and that is through the impact contract. And in that particular funding source, Sacramento County Office of Education has subcontracted with Child Action a substantial amount of funding to specifically reach out to family, friends, and neighbors. And so it is a strategy that's not used very widely throughout the state, but we found it was really important to build that awareness in terms of what does quality look like in that informal care setting. And so we have allocated resources in order to do that, to help our providers then get licensed to move into the Raising Quality Together system. So thank you so much.
Thanks. You good? Okay, so we have our motion and a second. So now we can do a roll call vote. There's no other comment.
Steve Wertz?
Aye.
Terrence Jones?
Aye.
Terry Porter?
Aye.
Donna Sneeringer?
Aye.
Scott Moak?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay. Congratulations to all of you. That was... We'll tee up item number 10. I'll go get Dave.
Approval of funding recommendation for breastfeeding support services.
Great, and we have Linda Fong-Samara will take this one for us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are excited to bring forth some funding recommendations to you today for breastfeeding support services. Just as a brief background, staff released a request for proposals, or RFP, in October of 2017 to provide breastfeeding support services to local mothers to make sure they have education and support to help them both initiate and continue exclusive breastfeeding until their child is at least 6 months of age, and that follows the AAP guidelines. A total of about $2.25 million was available for the 3-year period, and 2 organizations applied for funding. One was the Sacramento County DHHS WIC program, and the other is Community Resource Project, or CRP, as we call them with an acronym. Both underwent the review process, and at this time, as the highest scoring proposer, CRP is being recommended for full funding for their request of $1.09 million. DHHS WIC received the second highest passing score and is being recommended for the balance of funding in the amount of $1.15 million. And these amounts together exhaust the funding available under the RFP. We're excited that these 2 programs together are going to continue to offer important services to women in our community so that mothers and their infants can get off to a healthy start. In addition to these 2 programs, there's been a lot of discussion about sustainability in prior meetings and today as well. So there are sustainability activities forthcoming. One example is work with an intern from UC Davis. It's an MPH student, and that intern is going to assess barriers to accessing breastfeeding support services in our community, including those that should be available within individuals' health plans and in health systems. Other examples could be the Sustainability Committee advocating for continued coverage and utilization of existing breastfeeding support services, and of course, doing additional outreach and education regarding those support services in our community. So those are all things moving forward that will help mothers access those critical services, and we're excited for the work ahead with our partners and with our commissioners and with the commission. So with that very brief report, do you have any questions?
Any questions for staff? Our breastfeeding champion, Commissioner Elliott.
Sorry, predictable.
Nope, that's great.
So my question is, with the second, with the DHHS WIC program, they're getting less than 50% of what they were asking, understanding that they were the second scorer and that was the remaining balance. So my question is, their program goals say they want to serve 2,400 mothers, and then they list out, a variety of activities. My assumption is that with less than 50% of the funding, I anticipate that those goals, program goals, will adjust, and you'll, through the negotiating of the contract, come up with reachable goals within the amount of funding that they'll be getting? Is that how that will work?
Yes, these are the reduced goals.
Those are the reduced goals. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they had to reduce the number of staff and actually the number of locations that they're providing services in, and they're focused on their highest volume locations.
Okay.
In this reduced proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments from the commission? We do have a few people signed up to speak, so I'll ask Jeanette Newman-Velez to come forward.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name again is Jeanette Newman-Velez, and I'm the Breastfeeding Promotion Coordinator at Community Resource Project WIC, or CRP WIC. I would like to thank you once again for your thoughtful consideration and hopefully approval of this RFP so that we can continue to provide critical services to the women and infants in Sacramento County. This early intervention health project will move the nutrition result area forward by continuing these important services targeted towards low-income women who normally lack access to such services. As such, I believe it will ensure that we can continue to provide optimal nutrition, or they can provide optimal nutrition to their infants through successful initiation and duration of breastfeeding. Thus far, our results have been clear. Those WIC infants whose mothers received first 5 funded services had higher rates of breastfeeding at both 6 and 11-month time periods that are critical markers that demonstrate successful duration. In our most recent quarterly reports, our 6-month-old infants whose mothers received these services had a 43% exclusive breastfeeding rate, compared to only 16% of those infants not touched by First 5. Similarly, the 11-month-old infants in our program, 28% were exclusively breastfeeding, compared to only 19% of those with no services. And even for mothers who chose to combination feed, we see that they also had higher breastfeeding rates than those who did not get any breastfeeding services from our lactation consultants. Continued funding will allow us to further implement our plans to also target low breastfeeding rates among our African American community that have lower rates compared to other ethnic groups, and we believe this strategy will help facilitate ongoing efforts by the Commission to decrease the alarming disparity in African American infant death rates in Sacramento. We're committed to working with our partners to continue to leverage the limited resources to attain our mutual goals, and we appreciate the Commission's vision to allow us during this critical time to further develop systems for further continued sustainability. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jeanette. Next speaker is Amelia Shandell. Next up will be Lisa Matthews, so you can get ready.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Amelia. I'm Amelia Shandell again. And I just really want to thank you for the great ride. It's been 16 years since the very first time we got funding, and I'm just so proud and so excited to see what's happened in Sacramento. 30 years ago, Sacramento was not a breastfeeding supportive town. It was pretty intense, pretty stressful. And every time we tried to help moms, we encountered so many barriers and so many challenges. But now this has become such a breastfeeding friendly place, and we just see so many changes with hospitals and systems and going back to work and the regional breastfeeding consultants, and it's just really made a big difference. And I want to thank all of you because of your vision, your tenacity. Many times we were on the chopping block, and many times some of you stood up and said, no, we can't do this. So again, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it's been wonderful. And I also really want to thank you for the opportunity of 3 more years. It'll help buy us time, and so that we can put the throttle on our sustainability plans, and we hope for the best. But again, I'm very, very appreciative for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Matthews. Hi.
Hello, Commission. My name is Lisa Matthews, and I'm the Breastfeeding Program Coordinator with the Sacramento County WIC program. I also wanted to echo the previous 2 speakers in that I want to express my gratitude to the Commission in supporting our program for more than a decade and a half. We have seen great increases in our exclusive breastfeeding, so moms that don't provide any formula to their babies, but also any breastfeeding, so breastfeeding at any amount. And in many times we're seeing more than double the rates of breastfeeding among the first 5 recipients versus those that haven't received any services. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to this Commission for your long support.
Thanks. Dr. Wertz.
Just a question you will have heard before. Is there a way, and I guess, Julie, this goes to staff as well, but perhaps the programs, is there a way that we will continue to build on the baby-friendly hospital initiatives? Do we feel like we've got them on board, all the hospital systems, or is there a way to ensure that we keep them in the loop, and certainly as part of the sustainability piece as well?
You want me to start? One of the things that we're looking at in hiring or bringing on an intern, a free intern from UC Davis, is around that. What sort of work needs to be done with our health systems in order to sustain breastfeeding services. And so that is one thing we'll be looking at, along with several others, how to engage and how to provide them whatever support they might need to get them to the next level. And also the barrier side, what is stopping health systems from being able to deliver what technically they should be able to deliver through Affordable Care Act right now? What are the barriers that moms are facing when they're trying to actually access the things for which they are eligible? So kind of both sides of that, but yes, that is a couple of the job duties of our new intern.
And I can briefly add to that too. A couple of the reasons why we took a slight step back from the baby-friendly work was because of all of the honestly, pressure and influences happening outside our first 5. That was a positive push towards breastfeeding support. So all hospitals and health systems have to have an infant feeding policy now. They must. And so for all intents and purposes, these health systems either have to adopt a model policy that's available through CDPH, or they should just become baby-friendly, get that certification. So it wasn't so much necessary for us as a commission to say, here's an incentive, we'll pay for your training and we'll offer you some of the payment towards baby friendly. Again, there's this requirement that they become breastfeeding friendly. So that was one of the reasons. And then of course under the Affordable Care Act, there is supposed to be breastfeeding support. However, how that is defined within each of the agencies in the community is a little bit different and a little bit hazy, so that is why we're bringing on an intern to help us figure out what's happening in our own local community.
I'd also like to piggyback onto what Julie and Linda had to say as far as what Commissioner Wirtz was asking, is that fortunately we have a special grant through our state WIC program that has special staff called regional breastfeeding liaisons, and they've been working very, very actively as part of their plan of action to ensure that these local hospitals meet that requirement, because it's one thing to say you must, but then the how. Our regional breastfeeding liaisons are helping with that process. They're meeting with them, they're meeting with their task force to help them make sure that they can meet the different steps of the Baby Friendly Commission so that they can pass with flying colors. Also, both Lisa and I are involved with our local breastfeeding coalition, and our coalition is working to make the community come together and make sure we're working with other local providers so that that can be something built in and embedded into other services. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks for that additional context. With no one else requesting to speak at the commission and no other speaker slips, we can entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Wirtz is first.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gordon. Let's do a roll call vote.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Steve Wirtz.
Aye.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Terry Porter.
Aye.
Scott Moak.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right. Congratulations. Yay. Are the rounds of applause happening because I'm a basketball announcer? Is that what's happening? Like, this is weird. It's a little weird. We've never had that before.
I like it.
He has. He really has. Okay. Yes, Dr. K can come back. Let's move on to our next item.
Approval of funding recommendation for pregnancy support mentor services.
And Linda's on a roll, so we'll have her take this one too.
Perfect.
Hello again, commissioners. We're excited to bring forward another set of funding recommendations for you, and I thought I would again provide some background. So some of you may have noticed this agenda item was pulled from the February meeting, and really this was to allow staff some time to meet with our current contractors to talk about some possibilities for collaboration moving forward into our 2018 to 2021 strategic plan. We had heard that there was a desire to ensure a full continuum of services, including those medical services and ultrasounds that are available to pregnant women in the upcoming 3-year cycle. We're really proud and excited to bring forward what we think is a really great collaborative answer that offers women that full complement of services. And this will be provided by 2 primary agencies and several subcontractors with those agencies. Both the Center for Community Health and Well-Being and WellSpace Health are committed partners to work together, and we facilitated discussions with these 2 entities, and all of us agreed that women should have access and would benefit from that biomedical, psychosocial, and social support model. That includes the pregnancy mentoring that we've had for the past couple of years, in addition to mental health and medical services. During these discussions, we talked about where they could work together, where there are areas that complement each other, and Center for Community Health and Wellbeing is actually voluntarily reducing their budget by $180,000. And so this moves their request from about $2.1 million to $1.9 million. And this will ensure that women enrolled in their program will have access to the medical model services provided by WellSpace Health in the upcoming 3-year period. WellSpace will have approximately $500,000 to close out their current services to women enrolled in the program. We're estimating about the first 6 months they'll work on that closeout of services for their current clients. And then they will continue to provide ultrasounds and mental health services to women in the Black Mothers United program through the Center for Community Health and Wellbeing. Although there will be a slightly fewer number of women served overall than initially proposed, we do think that this approach is a much more integrated model, and it's going to offer moms a multitude of services that is really important and critical to reducing those risks for poor birth outcomes. So overall, we think this is a win-win solution, and we are excited. We really appreciate the flexibility and commitment of our partners. With this, we're requesting your approval to enter into a contract with Center for Community Health and Wellbeing for $1,906,559 and a contract with WellSpace Health for the 3-year period at $500,490. Any questions?
Commissioner Stieringer.
I'm just curious, you mentioned slightly fewer total would be served. How much was that decline?
It's approximately 100 women over the 3-year period. So it's about a 13% decline from the initial proposal.
Thank you.
Yes, 100 women total over the 3-year period.
Let me make sure I understand. The initial proposal was, I believe, about 730 women, and this will serve closer to 630 women.
Okay, that's
yes.
What I was trying to figure out.
Okay.
100 women over 3 years for...
Sorry for the confusion.
Commissioner Wirtz.
So I think this sounds like an amazing partnership and an amazing job of collaboration and working through. What I want to say is a couple things. One, it seems like from the evaluation committee data that we've looked at, I think that having a medical base seems to be a very critical part of getting the outcomes that we've been seeing, and therefore I'm really pleased to see that that medical piece is there. And secondly, I think one of the things I'm really excited about in this partnership is that there was overlap before in terms of where moms might deliver, whether they receive cultural broker support from either program, and now to see that will work together to try to integrate that process and have one of the questions I always had was, the cultural broker works in the community, does a great job of engaging the mom, and then they struggle with the healthcare system about where that's going to happen and how their system works. And I think this allows at least for that better integration, that they know they have a base home for medical care that will ensure that kind of access and collaboration between the cultural broker and that service. I know this is not necessarily easy, and I really want to acknowledge and appreciate the willingness of both organizations and First Five to work on this kind of a solution, which it seems to me, even though there's less women served, the quality of that service will likely be improved. And I think it is really a comment on the commitment to the broader goal of the outcomes of helping families and children in Sacramento. So mainly, I think I want to thank First Five for taking the time to work through, staff to work through this, and second, both our partners who have been doing a great job to work together to come to this solution. It seems to me like this is going to be a valuable integrated service. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Wirtz. We have a bunch of people signed up to speak, but let's let Commissioner Stieringer
I just have a question for staff. The documents that we had in our packet only reflect what wasn't funded in the secondary proposal. Is there an outline of what the 500,000 is covering? Because we have the Center for Community Health and Well-Being, but we don't have the scaled back 500,000 for WellSpace.
So WellSpace Health was actually a subcontractor of the CAPC proposal, and they were providing a majority of the pregnancy peer support services, the ultrasound, and the psychosocial supports. With our work to discuss collaboration with both partners, we've begun looking at some of those numbers, and we will continue to negotiate the details with both contractors. The idea is to meet with them individually and together as a group so we can talk about the different processes and the minimum numbers that we will see from both parties.
But we don't have that yet.
We don't have it in the summary yet.
We have some ideas. It's not completely up in the air. We anticipate around 200 ultrasounds per year. With the Black Mothers United program serving around 210 or so women each year, we would hope that the majority of them have ultrasounds and are connected to the services at WellSpace, so probably close to around a couple hundred a year. But we didn't make it to that exact process, but essentially what we're asking for today is permission to enter into negotiations with them and sort of figure it out, and we're happy to share with you where that all lands. But I think in good faith I can tell you that we're not concerned about it landing in a good place.
Let's take some of our speakers. First up is going to be Tamara Walton, followed by Leona Spivey. We'll just ask you to state your name, and there are a number of people signed up to speak, so the line is long. So we have that 3-minute timer. Don't like stare at it. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it bother you. Just pretend it's not there. Just kind of know it's somewhere in the background.
Hello, my name is Tamara Walton, and I was just coming to speak and just say how the program has impacted me. I was actually a mother that was in the program, and now due to the funding, I am actually going to be a advocate, so I can actually extend the help that I received to someone else. And my son is 7 months old now, and he's just growing and thriving, and due to the help of the Black Mothers United program, I'm just excited to be part of the group now, knowing that I get to help other mothers through that program like I got helped. So that's all I had to add.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. This is Leona Spivey, and next up will be Shannon Reed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Leona Spivey, and I've been a part of the organization for approximately 17 years. But today I bring to Tiana Anderson, who's 39 weeks.
Holy Moses.
And this is
all right. Dr. Kasiri, be on the alert. You might not just only sign the birth certificate in this case, you might do some other work too.
Working with Black Mothers United is really close to my heart, because I can honestly say I was one of those mothers that was lost out there on drugs. But today I can give back. My client, who also experienced drug abuse, substance abuse, and homelessness, for like 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, I had lost contact with her, and she was homeless down at Mary House. And every night I would go home, and it would just tear into my heart like, God, I need to find somewhere for her to go. I need to find somewhere. I couldn't even imagine myself sleeping out in a tent in the open. And so when I contacted her, I was like, are you scared out there? She was like, of course I'm scared, but I don't have nowhere to go. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta figure out something here. So of course we found, she ended up at Bishop Gallegos. Her testing, all her levels are fine now. She's now clean, and she has her own room over there. And Her baby's due any day, and she's gonna weigh over 9 pounds. But I really appreciate the funding that we're going to receive, because now we can continue the work that we do. It's not about what education you have, it's about what you have in your heart. And I feel like the women that we have as far as staff have all of that. And we're going to push forward, and maybe one day we'll have our own maternity home so that we don't have to send our women to the streets. Thank you.
Thanks, Leona. Shannon Reed. Shannon will be followed by Professor Rich Callahan.
Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Reed. I'm the Executive Director for Center for Community Health and Wellbeing and the Black Mothers United program. Today, our agency is being recommended for a contract award of $1.9 million over the next 3 years. And although we did support the original staff recommendation for our full funding request of nearly $2.1 million, the $9.1 million being recommended today will allow us to continue providing the critical services to pregnant African American women throughout the county. As First Five staff recognized, our agency is best positioned to decrease infant deaths in Sacramento County because we effectively serve pregnant African American women with the greatest risk of poor birth outcomes. Our mission of lowering the African American infant mortality rate has remained persistent since 1988. Our capacity to, 1, reach women who may not be receiving prenatal care or face barriers to care, and 2, meet their individual needs remains unmatched. Through our program, we will continue to enroll the hardest to reach women into our culturally sensitive program and link them to critical services. We will continue to develop trusting relationships and provide socio-emotional support to our clients. This is our keystone strength. It is our gateway to providing women with comprehensive community-based services that together optimize birth outcomes such as gestational age and weight. Our pregnancy coaches assist with navigating the critical health and social service needs and addresses risk factors to encourage the healthiest birth outcomes possible. Essentially, we are connecting women to perinatal care and education while mitigating the negative impacts of the social determinants of health, all within a nurturing and supportive community of African American mothers, resulting in decreased perinatal conditions deaths. Since we first received funding in 2013, we have impacted the lives of 355 unduplicated women and their infants. This new contract will enable us to serve an additional 630 women. On behalf of our agency, thank you to First Five staff and to the First Five Commission for your continual support of our work. We look forward to continuing our mission of increasing the number of healthy African American babies born here in Sacramento County. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Professor Rich Callahan will be followed. I'll find the name in a minute. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Rich Callahan. I'm a professor at the University of San Francisco, but I'm a resident of Carmichael in Sacramento, California. I come here today based on both my firsthand knowledge of the community of CCH and its well-being program, and also based on the research I did on looking at programs that address the social determinants of health. And one of the researchers, as part of that research, I reached out to Chet Hewitt at Sierra Health Foundation. The example he took to write of all the work that the foundation does, the example he drew on was the example of developing these programs to address the disproportionate rate of death of African American infants. And this program that you're funding, CCH-WB, is a program that's a model. When Chet wrote this chapter several years ago, he said he wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be. What I was interested in finding in this research and my research to other leaders in the state, Ken Kaiser at the Institute of Population Health Improvement, Dr. Tony Eiton, Dr. Robert Ross at the California Endowment, was not people who could describe the problems of social determinants of health, but people who had come up with solutions and getting traction on this. And your funding of CCH-WB is funding of a program that's gotten traction and making difference in the lives of these women and these children. You heard earlier about the number of African American infant deaths starting to go down. That reverses a 20-year trend. And it's not by accident, it's by your investment. It's a model in Sacramento that is not just a model for Sacramento in investing in this program, but potentially a national model. It's a model where you have women providing services directly to women in a program run by women. It's a program that, in my study of it, has a low-cost infrastructure. The dollars that you invest in this program goes directly to service. They're not carrying overhead. They're not carrying processing of other things. The other piece about it, and this is really where I commend the Commission as well, is there's other sources of funding for medical models. There's not a lot of funding for social determinant of health models. And your courage and conviction and core values in investing in a model that addresses specifically the social determinants of health, as I said, it's not just a model in Sacramento, but it's really a model nationally. I'd ask, as you consider moving forward, that you consider ways that you can find funding for CCHWB to serve those additional 105 people, women and children who aren't being served under this proposal. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say, I see this as not only an effective investment over the next 3 years, but you really change the trajectory of lives of these women and these children in the decades to come. And that's really public service at its best. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Next speaker is Frederick Gale, who I think spoke earlier, but I don't see him.
He left.
He left, okay. So we'll move on to Gina Roberson. And then followed by Kenya. I'll wait to say your name, Kenya. Your last name.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Gina Roberson. I'm the Associate Executive Director of the Health Education Council, a subcontractor of CCHWB's proposal. I'm also a Placer County First Five Commissioner, and I only share that because I do understand the importance of process in when making funding decisions, so they are fair and equitable. I am speaking today as one of the subcontractors who, if the staff recommendations are approved, will have less funds to provide African American pregnant women needed health education and support to have healthy pregnancies, learn skills to reduce and cope with their stress, and lead a healthy lifestyle. We know that these are the important contributors to successful pregnancies and reducing perinatal condition deaths. I'm also speaking as a concerned community member about the lack of transparency and arbitrary funding of programs outside the competitive RFP process. I can remember a few years back when this commission was also concerned about this and developed a process for funding out of the funding cycle and out of the RFP process. It appears that those processes are not being followed with today's recommendation. In the current staff recommendation, the center has been asked to reduce their budget by nearly $200,000, which will result in serving significantly fewer African American women in the community. Even though they were the successful applicant in the competitive RFP process and there were no protest letters filed. It has not been made public why First Five asked the center to voluntarily reduce their budget to fund WellSpace, and to my knowledge, WellSpace has not provided a budget or a scope of work for how they will use their over $500,000, unlike each of the applicants who complied with the competitive process. I encourage the Commission to stand by its process and approve First Five's original recommendation from February, which was to fund the center at the full amount proposed and use the unallocated balance in this priority area of the $320,000 to fund WellSpace Health. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope you will do right by the many African American women who will not be served if the current staff recommendation is approved. Thank you.
Thanks. Kenya, you are up. Say your last name for me.
I know you didn't want to try that last name.
I did.
My last name is Fagbimi. And so I am the program director for Center for Community Health and Wellbeing. And I am both excited and overjoyed at the amount of funding that is recommended for us. At the same time, I am disappointed with the process. I think that we have to kind of look at our processes and how we go out for funding. It was a very competitive process. I think that the two programs are both doing great work, and it's needed. That's the purpose of these programs, is to reach the families and the families who are most in need. And yes, this could be a very great collaborative partnership, but I also want us to just think about how this competitive process kind of puts us almost at odds, in a sense, because we are competitors. We're both going out for the same amount of money, and we have things that we have to consider, things that may have to be reduced, things that may increase. And so I just, again, felt that we could do better with the process and how we go about the RFP, the grant process itself, and how funding is considered. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Okay, I have nobody else signed up to speak. Commission member comments, other questions? Go ahead.
Just a clarification. I think I was just doing the math. The cutting of the 180,000 from the original request represents 8.6% decrease. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my comments were based on an understanding that there was a clearer sense of collaboration here. So I'm certainly concerned about the value of having the integrated health access with the community outreach. And I'll just say again that my reading of the data, which is limited, the data is limited, so is my reading of it, so being clear on that. But my reading of that is that the best outcomes we're getting for reducing infant mortality and birth outcomes has been from the WellSpace services that had both cultural broker and medical care. So being the empiricist and scientist that I am, and being a applied researcher as well, I know there's limitations to that data, but so two separate things. One, I think it's a good idea. Two, I'm not speaking to the process, because that is a valid and reasonable component of activity.
Commissioner Elliott.
And so that, to your point, and it seems like it was a collaborative effort between the two groups to come to this agreement around what the funding level would be, which makes me heartened, because what we're finding in the evaluation committee meetings with this data, and I'm not a doctor, but I do have a master's degree from USC, Dr. Callahan, which I think I'm a former student of yours. Neither here nor there. The cultural broker piece is critical. The medical piece is critical. As commissioners, we set the tone and we lead, what we expect our contractors to, what we expect to be implemented in the community based on the funding that we provide. And I think that I can only speak for myself, and I'm not a voting member, but my expectation is that as we move towards sustainability, the competitive nature that we see, there's 1 million nonprofits, there's 1 million of us doing the same work. I will just speak for myself that my hope is that as we reduce our funding, not because we want to or need, we have to, the competitive nature will move towards more collaboration, and where one group is doing one thing and another group is doing that same thing, let's remove the fighting and let's come together and collaborate. And so that's my understanding of how this process was. And so I hope that moving forward that we can set a standard and an example that our expectation for the contracts that we fund will make Sacramento more of a community, and our nonprofits will be more of a community together. And that's easy for me to say. I don't run a nonprofit. So I understand that piece is very difficult to serve the people that all of you are trying to serve. But again, I'll speak for myself. I hope that we can come together as a community and find places to work together and not fight each other.
Dr. Kasiri.
So thank you. I do agree with what Dr. Wirtz said about the data, but my question, I guess, is to Julie, because when I was reading the documents you sent, the impression I had is that this was collaborative, and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But I am concerned about the comments I'm hearing. It seems like
we
not,
walked out of it thinking that it's a collaborative effort. And I think you heard a little bit about the process maybe wasn't appreciated as much as the fact that, at least my impression is, that the executive directors from each of the agency do understand what Christina just said, and that we are sort of stronger when we're working together and not duplicating, but working in an integrated way.
Right.
The process question, I think, just goes back to staff really did try very hard to honor the competitive RFP process, and having not gotten exactly that full continuum of services, did go back to ask the partners to come together in a collaborative way to see if they, as executive directors, could come to an agreement. That is what happened. We didn't we didn't broker it so much as we just got together in a room and talked about it, and essentially that's when Shannon, I think, gave a dollar amount that she was comfortable with. And I say comfortable, and she can speak to this, it does mean 100 less women being served overall, and that is a concern, obviously, that Linda and I share, and is what we're getting from the well space, that whole continuum of care, is that significant enough to make up for serving 100 less women? I believe it is, because I really do think that model, that's how we are getting our outcomes, is by having that continuum of service. So to me, and that's why I brought it forward, I wouldn't bring it forward if I wasn't comfortable with that.
Is it okay? Is it possible to hear from the two executive directors, maybe?
Both here. Fine.
Come on down.
I'll key off you. I'm just here at your invitation, so come on.
The board invited you to speak.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, Jonathan Porteous, WellSpace Health. We did not apply for this money. We were part of a collaborative that failed in its application, and we were approached because a component of what we do is not funded by any funding stream. Women of color experience institutional racism in the medical field because the ultrasounds they need to decrease the incidence of the premature birth and low birth weight are not available through any billing stream. We, in our original model, which was biologic, psychologic, and social, insisted on a 24-week ultrasound because those are not billed or billable through any insurance. The whole system is rigged to not make it possible to do what may actually save the life of an African American child. That is at the core of the amount that was divined in this process, and that amount came from pre-existing budgets that we've had for many years with the Commission. But we did not apply for this money, and we're very grateful for your consideration, and I feel like we were invited to a conversation with BMU and felt like it was very productive. So really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hi again. No, what Jonathan said, they were certainly productive conversations that we had. And, I would be remiss to say that, it wasn't challenging to identify areas within our proposed budget that we could decrease so that we could make this partnership work. I certainly see the value in having that medical model as a complement to our service. That said, it was a struggle because that is 100 lives that we will not be able to work with. That said, coming together in collaboration with this is something that we've talked about, I think, in various projects that we work on together, in that we know that we need to have complementary services coming from both ends. But I'm pleased to know that with the recommendation, with the funding that's on the table, that we will be able to enhance the services that we're currently providing with our cultural broker model, and continue to expand on the number of women that we are serving. So currently we're serving about 200 a year, and this will, be a little bit more. So thank you for your consideration.
Thanks. Dr. Jones.
Thank you, and thank you both for coming forward and speaking. I'm not commenting on the process. I think that does raise concerns. I think if there's an opportunity for me, when I step back and look at the larger picture within the community, I think the women benefit from the complementary programs that we are putting before the Commission for the vote. I think the fact that WellSpace does have a continuum of care model already in existence, that they can continue to serve them, that they can bring, I think, that extra step, access to ultrasounds and, additional healthcare service and psychosocial services. I think that's a wonderful model that would complement the existing programs that we have. So I appreciate the concerns about the process, but I think if we look at the bigger macro picture, I think the community is better served with this combination.
Thanks. Commissioner Steeringer?
I agree with the benefits to the community of the combined model. I would say going forward, I think we need to provide some clarity in our process so that there isn't this confusion at the front end. If our intent is to have collaborative proposals that include all elements, I think we need to say that up front, because I know that you brought everybody in and you felt like it was a collaborative conversation, but as a community-based nonprofit person for my whole life, having your funder bring you to the table and say, we really want you to do this, there is a little pressure that you feel, and I think it is we need to recognize that, and we just need to be very clear at the front end. I mean, I think where you're landing seems reasonable to me, but I am concerned about making sure that we're clear about it at the front end.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think we have to recognize that as we move forward with this is a new venture, and we're breaking new ground and figuring out how to do this better and better. And perhaps if there was some caveat in the overall request for proposals around this, that this is an evolving system and it's to our advantage to work to perfect it from year to year and from contract to contract, that might help us a lot, because I think the work that's been done in a collaborative way has made the program better over the last several years, and we should seek to continue to do so.
Commissioner Wirtz?
Just a final point, again, not speaking to the process because I agree with all the comments about that, but I'm speaking to the women that might not get served, and I just want to clarify something that always is a hard balancing act between quantity and quality. And for me, I'm looking for the outcome. I'd rather see, the positive outcome for 200 women a year than not a similar positive outcome for 300 or whatever the other number is. So I think what we're trying to do here, and it's an empirical question that we will continue to monitor, is that by combining these services, we're going to get a better outcome, a better birth outcome for more moms than if we spread our services thinner and don't have all the components that we need. It's always a hard trade-off, but I think the evidence would if in the preponderance of evidence leans toward having a better outcome with this integrated service, and that's important to me.
Maybe just to close up, I'll say 19 years ago, there were a dozen or 15 or 18 competitive nonprofit organizations that all entered into this room and other rooms like it that were vying for the same dollar, and ultimately realized that working together was going to be the best step. That was completely supported and applauded by this commission, and that program was the Family Support Collaborative and Birth and Beyond. That's really the genesis of what, and I'll look to CAPSI and give them kudos for bringing that discussion to fruition and allowing people who weren't traditionally sitting at the same table talking to each other, they all of a sudden did. And if we look today as a program that went through a non-competitive process to get funding, I feel like, using Dave Gordon's logic, that we are potentially on to something great this way as well. As a sports guy, look, if there's a problem, which in sports it's wins, right? You look to find the best people to let you win. And if I am drafting a group of or individuals or organizations, I am drafting these two organizations, period, to save babies' lives, black babies' lives. That's what I want. I don't want any more black babies to die in this community. And if I need to look at two organizations that I know can do that and zero that number out and continue to zero that number out, I'm fine with it. And I'm so happy you two are working together. I'm thrilled by it. So I also want to, without Phil here, I feel awful that he's not here for this moment and for what he has done. 10 years ago, we were talking this same madness and nothing was being done with it. And today we're about to give out $2 million more for it and all these great services that are going to continue by the right kind of people and the people who can do this work and move the needle, who dedicate their lives to making sure these families and these moms are taken care of and getting to the right appointments. So I can't thank you enough for that. But I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for what is about to happen with this program and what's going to happen. As the professor said, this is a national model that we're going to be really proud of and hopefully show off to the world. So I'll finish that way by asking if there's a motion.
Move to approve. Second. All right, you first.
So moved.
Okay, we have our first and our
second
here. Good. We'll ask for a roll call vote.
Dave Gordon?
Aye.
Steve Wertz?
Aye.
Terrence Jones?
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri?
Aye.
Terry Porter?
Aye.
Scott Moak?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Yay. Let's move to item number 13. 12, sorry. Whoa. Tried.
Approval of funding recommendation for evaluation services.
Oh, man, it's the evaluation I skip over.
Thank you. Okay, well, this one will be a little bit less exciting, I think, but very important too. Before you today is a recommendation from staff to fund applied survey research for the contract term of July 1, 2018 through December 31st of 2021 to provide our evaluation consultation services. The maximum amount is $765,000. And this is in response to an RFP that was released in December. We had 2 agencies apply and go through both an internal review process and an external review process with members of our advisory committee. And the results were posted on February 9th with applied survey research coming out as the top point earner at 224 points out of 240. Harder & Company Community Research also applied. They were the second point earner at 214 and are not being recommended for funding. Both of these applications were amazing. We're so fortunate to be here in Sacramento County and have the caliber of expertise, just the level of expertise with both of these was superior, just unlike anything I've seen in a long time. So that said, we are recommending the top point earner, applied survey research. There are some economies of scale because they've been working on our programs. There's really no need for a lead-in time. They can just hit the ground running with the new strategic plan. And we also allow for a 6-month continuation at the end of the strategic plan for report writing in the event that they don't get the contract for the next time around.
Okay.
So we're asking for approval of the contract with Applied Survey Research for $765,000 for the 3.5-year period.
Great, thanks. No one requesting to speak. Any commission member comments? Okay, we can entertain a motion.
I so move.
Dr. Wirtz.
Second.
Dr. Kasiri, second. Excellent. Let's do a roll call vote.
Dave Gordon?
Aye.
Steve Wirtz?
Aye.
Terrence Jones?
Aye.
Olivia Kasiri?
Aye.
Terry Porter?
Aye.
Scott Moak?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thanks. Item number 13.
Commission member comments?
Who's got a comment? Anyone? Not how well I facilitated this meeting? I mean, come on, guys. Serious, that was pressure.
Wow.
Stop it. Okay, so hearing none, I believe, does that bring us to the conclusion of our meeting? Well, thank you all for your work today. A historic day, handing out close to $40 million in less than 2 hours. That's like record pace. So thank you all. Thank you all for attending today, and have a great rest of your day. Meeting adjourned. Sure.